Chapter 9. Fear, Vanity, Revenge and Silly Jokes. March turned into April and April turned into May. After Fireworm's remark about the pathetic bunny rabbit, Toothless never pooed in the kitchen again. But Hiccup hadn't made any further progress in training him. It was still raining, but it was a warm rain. The wind was blowing, but it was a less furious wind. It was just about possible to stand upright. The girls' eggs were hatching on the rocks, and the parent girls dive-bombed Hiccup and Fishlegs when they came to Long Beach to practice. "Kill, Horrorcow, kill!" said Fishlegs to Horrorcow, who was calmly perched on his shoulder. "You could have that black-backed girl for breakfast. He's barely half your size. Honestly, Hiccup, I give up. I don't know how I'm going to pass the hunting section of the test. Horrorcow just doesn't have the killer instinct. She'd never survive in the wild." Hiccup laughed hollowly. "You think you've got problems? Toothless and I are failing right from the beginning. The basic obedience commands, the retrieval, the compulsory exercises, the hunting, the lot." "It can't be that bad," said Fishlegs. "Watch," said Hiccup. The boys moved along the beach a bit out of range of the girls. They started practicing the most basic command of all. Go. The dragon was supposed to stand bolt upright on the handler's outstretched arm. The handler would then bark the command as loudly as possible, while simultaneously lifting his arm to fling the dragon into the air. The dragon was supposed to soar gracefully into flight when the handler's arm reached its highest point. Horrorcow yawned, scratched, and slowly flapped off, grumbling to herself. Toothless was even less obedient. "Go!" yelled Hiccup. Hiccup flung his arm up. Toothless hung on. "I said go!" repeated Hiccup in frustration. "Why go?" shuddered Toothless, gripping even tighter. "Just go, 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 go!" screamed Hiccup, flapping his arm up and down frantically, with Toothless hanging on to it for dear life. Toothless stayed. "Toothless," said Hiccup as reasonably as he could, "please go. If you don't start going when I tell you to, we're both going to be thrown into exile." "But I don't want to go," Toothless pointed out, equally reasonably. Fishlegs watched the whole process in appalled amazement. "You really do have problems," he said in an awed voice. "Yep," said Hiccup. He finally managed to uncurl Toothless's claws, which had relaxed their grip for a second, and pushed him off. Toothless landed on the sand with a squeal of outrage and immediately attached himself to Hiccup's leg, getting a good grip on the sandals with his talons and wrapping his wings around Hiccup's calf. Not going," said Toothless stubbornly. "It can't get much worse than this," said Hiccup. "So I'm going to try a new tack." He took out the notebook in which he'd been jotting down all he knew about dragons in the hope that it might be useful. "Dragon motivation," Hiccup read aloud. "Number 1, gratitude." Hiccup sighed. "Number 2, fear. That works, but I can't do it. 3, 4, 5, greed, vanity and revenge. Those are all worth a try. 6, jokes and riddling talk. Only if I'm desperate. This has got to be a first," drawled Fishlegs. "But I'm with Gobber the Belch on this one. Why don't you just yell a bit louder?" Hiccup ignored him. "OK, Toothless," said Hiccup to the little dragon, who was pretending to be asleep as he held on to Hiccup's leg. "For every fish you catch me, I will give you 2 more lobsters when you get home." Toothless opened his eyes. Alive?" he said eagerly. Can Toothless kill them? Please, just this once." "No, Toothless," said Hiccup firmly. "I keep on telling you, it isn't kind to torture creatures smaller than yourself." Toothless closed his eyes again. You are so boring, he said sulkily. You're such a clever, quick dragon, Toothless, Hiccup flattered. I bet you could catch more fish than any of the others on Thursday if you wanted to. Toothless opened his eyes to consider the matter. Twice as many, he said modestly, but I don't want to. This was unanswerable. Hiccup crossed Vanity off his list. You know that big red fireworm dragon who was so rude to you, said Hiccup. Toothless spat on the ground in indignation. Said I was a newt with wings. Said I was an incontinent bunny rabbit. Toothless going to kill her. Toothless going to scratch her to death. Toothless going to... Yes, said Hiccup hastily. That fireworm dragon and her master, who looks like a pig, think that Fireworm is going to catch more fish than anybody else on Thursday celebrations. Think how stupid they're going to look if you win the prize for most promising dragon instead of her. Toothless got off Hiccup's leg. I will think about that, said Toothless. He waddled off a couple of feet and thought about it. 5 minutes later, he was still thinking. He let out the odd chuckle every now and then, but every time Hiccup said, "So how about it then?" he just replied, "Still thinking, go away." With a sigh, Hiccup put a line through revenge. "Okay," said Fishlegs, looking over Hiccup's shoulder. "You've tried everything else. How about jokes and riddling talk? I assume you're desperate." "Toothless," said Hiccup, "if you catch me a nice big mackerel, you will be the cleverest, fastest dragon on Burke, and you will make that fireworm dragon look like an idiot, and you will have all the lobsters you can eat when we get home, and I will tell you a really good joke." Toothless turned round. Toothless loves jokes. He flapped onto Hiccup's arm again. "All right. Toothless help you, but not because me being nice or anything yucky." No, said Hiccup, "of course not. Us dragons cruel and mean, but we do love a joke. Tell me, now." Hiccup laughed. "No way. After you bring me a mackerel." "Okay then," said Toothless. He jumped off Hiccup's arm into the air. A dragon hunting is a very impressive sight, even a scrawny infant one like Toothless. He flew across the beach in his usual untidy, lopsided fashion, shrieking a few insults along the way at any cormorants that looked smaller than him. But as soon as he reached the sea, Toothless seemed to grow up a bit. The sea salt awoke in him some ancestral memory of the great pedigree hunting monsters that were his forefathers. He spread out his wings like a kite and flew fairly swiftly over the surface of the choppy waves, keeping his wings and body steady as he searched for the movement of fish. He spotted something and soared upwards and upwards in circles until he was so high that Hiccup, craning his neck backward on the beach, could only just see him as a tiny speck. The speck was motionless for a second, and then Toothless dived, his wings folded by his side, dropping like a stone out of the sky. He disappeared into the water and was gone for quite a while. Dragons can stay underwater for at least 5 minutes if they want to, and Toothless got quite distracted under there, chasing one fish and then another, unable to decide which was the biggest. Hiccup had gotten bored and was looking for oysters when Toothless came bursting triumphantly out of the sea, carrying a small mackerel. He dropped the mackerel at Hiccup's feet, did 3 somersaults in a row, and landed on Hiccup's head. He let out the dragon's cry of triumph, which is a bit like a rooster crowing, but a lot louder and more self-satisfied. Then he leaned over and stared into Hiccup's eyes, upside down. "Now tell me a joke," said Hiccup. "Whimpering Wodens," said Hiccup. "He did it." He really did it. Tell me a joke, said Toothless again. What's black and white and red all over? Asked Hiccup. Toothless didn't know. A sunburned penguin, replied Hiccup. It was a very, very old joke, but apparently it hadn't made it to Wild Dragon Cliff. Toothless thought it was hysterically funny. He flew off to catch more fish so he could hear more jokes. It was an enjoyable afternoon. The rain stopped, the sun shone, and Toothless didn't do too badly at all with the hunting. He dropped a few fish and at one point wandered off entirely to chase rabbits on the cliff tops. But he came back when Hiccup called eventually, and by the end of a couple of hours he had caught 6 medium-sized mackerel and a dogfish. All in all, Hiccup was pretty satisfied. After all, he said to Fishlegs, it's not like I'm expecting to win the prize for most promising dragon or anything. All I need is to show that Toothless is basically under my control and for him to catch a few fish. We'll make fools of ourselves compared to Snotlout and his beastly hunting legend, but at least we'll have passed initiation. What was more, as Toothless dropped the last mackerel on the heap in front of Hiccup, Fishlegs noticed something sharp and gleaming in the dragon's lower jaw. Toothless has got his first tooth, said Fishlegs. It seemed a very good omen. As they staggered home, they passed old Wrinkly, who'd been sitting on a rock watching them for the past couple of hours. Very impressive, wheezed old Wrinkly as the boys showed him the fish wrapped up in Hiccup's cloak. We reckon Hiccup really might pass the final initiation test on Thursday, said Fishlegs excitedly. So, you're still worrying about that piddly little test, are you, Hiccup? Asked old Wrinkly. There are larger concerns, you know. There's a ginormous storm brewing up, for instance. It should hit us in about 3 days. Piddly little test, said Fishlegs indignantly. What do you mean, piddly little test? The Thursday Festival is the biggest event of the year. Everybody who is anybody will be there, all the hairy hooligans and the meatheads. Plus, this may not seem important to you, but anybody who fails this piddly little test gets put into exile to get eaten up by cannibals or something equally gruesome. I'm going to call myself Hiccup the Useful and his dragon Toothful, said Hiccup, beaming. I thought of it just now and I'm really pleased with it. It's solid, dependable, not too flashy and not too much to live up to. This reptile finally got his act together and caught some fish, said Fishlegs, pointing at Toothless, who was picking his nose with one claw. Incredible though it may seem, Hiccup may pass this test after all. Oh, I think it's almost a certainty, said old Wrinkly, looking at Toothless, who was now attempting to cross his eyes and was falling down in the process. Almost, repeated old Wrinkly thoughtfully. And the boys went home, with Toothless following on behind them, whining, Oh, carry me, carry me, it's not fair, my wings ache.